Welcome to On the Bubble Podcast, episode 112. I'm your host, Sebastian J. Wade, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be doing our How to Draft Puffin episode. We're going to be talking about common mech card, pirate card generics, and the best ways to build Puffin, at least from our experience so far. But before we do that, we went to Vegas right before, or this weekend actually. How did you do in Vegas?
Yeah, so on Friday, I played the World Championship qualifier, which was an 8-round sealed event with 150-ish players. I had a Gravy Bones sealed pool. I went 8-0 through Swiss, and then I ended up playing the top 8 and being a 1 of Puffin. I think I was 1 Puffin, 4 Gravy, 3 Marlin in the final pod. When you are a 1 of, your deck is very, very good, and I managed to 3-0 the pod, so I got my Worlds invite. Didn't get my gold foil because apparently I went up to the stage to get it and they're like, so we have all the gold foils, but we don't have a gold foil for this event. And then they checked the tracking sheet and they're like, yeah, it never got mailed. And the guy was like super apologetic about it. I was like, I don't know, like, how can I be mad at you? Like, what are you gonna do if you don't have the gold foil? It's not like you can like go get one somewhere. Like, you just don't have it. So they're gonna mail it to me, which is fine. I just thought it was like kind of funny because he seemed like sort of mortified. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've had jobs where I just like don't have the thing I'm supposed to have. Like, why would I get mad at you?
You know what? That's a very, very good or adult way of handling the situation. I can see, like, if like a random person getting pretty mad that there isn't the gold foil there. But yeah, no, that's great that they'll actually just mail it to you. Like, honestly, if they just gave it to you at the like a next event that you're gonna go to, that'd probably be very similar for you, anyways, right?
Yeah. So honestly, pretty happy with that. Locked up the World's invite, which people are like, oh, you're going to qualify anyways. But like, I don't know. If I don't do well at nationals, I'll fall out of ELO to qualify for Worlds. And then I would also fall out of, I think you need a top 12 Nats to get the invite. So it's like definitely not locked up. It really depends how Nats goes. So it's nice to get that kind of out of the way. On the Saturday, I played the calling, ended up going 5-3. I lost my winning in with a pretty mediocre Marlin pool. I just had very little access to go again. I didn't have Patch the Hole, notably. My deck had like tipples going for it, and wanted to take lots of lines, or it had like battalion barks too. So I wanted to take lots of lines where you would draw a random card and try to arsenal it, but there's a lot of bad arsenals. So yeah, I think if I had Patch the Hole, I could probably get there. But without it, it was a little bit too hard. So I ended up losing my win in a pretty close game. And I guess Sunday I played the Battle Hardened. I played Gravy Bones. I lost a very close game to New and a very close game to Florian, so I ended up dropping. I think it was like 3-2 or 4-2 when I dropped. Yeah, I felt pretty good about the list, honestly. Teammate Peter Budensic ended up top 8ing. I think he went 8-1 through Swiss on the same list. And to give people an idea of how much CC I've been playing, that was my first game against New and my first game against Florian on Gravy Bones. We're at the Battle Hardened, so even though I've played some of the deck, it's been very much like people asking me for Gravy reps or people like wanting to play their high seas brews into something, and I'm like, okay, I'll play my own high seas brew. It hasn't been like I'm gonna test this into like the good decks. So I don't know, losing one, like when we're both at 1 life in both those matchups and I never played them, felt pretty okay, honestly.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I guess your deck list went up on the mothership, fabtcg.com as well, right?
Yeah, so I wrote a Gravy Bones article on fabtcg.com. You can check that out. It sort of talks about the deck list, some of the card choices, equipment, and so on. Gives you some advice about sideboarding as well. And if you want to see the list I ended up playing at the Battle Hardened, you can check out Peter Budensic's list in the top 8 of the Battle Hardened in Las Vegas. It's very, very close. A few cards different. I added some AB and I tried portside exchanges, which were pretty good. But yeah, if you want to check that out, you can do that. And I guess I'll shout out the Patreon as well. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/onthebobble. And thank you to all of our patrons who give back to the show. We couldn't do this without you. We really appreciate everything you do. And if you're ever curious about, what kind of content might be on Patreon, the guide on FabTCG ends up being very similar to the types of guides that I have on Patreon. Usually the later Patreon guides end up having like a full sideboard notes for all the matchups as well. This one didn't, partially because it's in article form, partially because I think I finished the article like before US Nats before leaving to it, which was release weekend. So I definitely didn't have sideboard notes for just all the matchups. It was like a pretty general, like, here's how you beat aggro, here's how you beat fatigue, here's how you beat the beat down if you need to beat the beat down, that kind of thing. But yeah, it should give you a taste of what you could expect.
Okay, perfect.
How about you, Jay? I know you also went to Vegas. How did your weekend go?
For myself, I kind of, how do I say it? The fab portion of the trip was very reasonable, and I also went down to go play a little bit of poker like beforehand, and that was quite terrible. I ended up playing poker, just play cash games a bunch, and what ended up happening was I made a really strong hand, like full houses, and when I went all in with it, they called me down and they flipped over four of a kind 3 times in one night, which means that I lost a lot of money this trip. So I am definitely down. But for my Flesh and Blood experience, I played a lot of side events. I didn't play WCQ. I just played like sealed side events. Went 3-1 in all of them. That is enough to sell your tickets and make back your entry and a little bit more. So I kind of just survived off of that because I lost all of my money playing poker on like the first 2 days of Vegas.
Were you playing with fab players or just sort of like whoever?
I was just playing at the MGM, so just
Okay.
wherever, yeah.
Yeah, because I know at the Westgate there was definitely like a table full of fab players playing poker at a few different points in times. I don't know if you were like part of that or not, but yeah, there was lots of places to play poker in Vegas, of course.
Yeah, no, I wasn't part of that mostly because of I ran out of money before Flesh and Blood started, so yeah.
Reasonable, reasonable. My gambling also did not go very well. I played some blackjack, which was fun. It was going quite well for a while, and then I kept doubling in the face of a six, and then the dealer flipped over like a 5 card 21. And I got kind of incinerated. I kept splitting rather in the face of a six, and then kind of got incinerated for that. And then I came back to the table later, and the dealer hit like blackjack twice in like 5 hands. I was just like, okay, sure. So yeah, I ended up losing a decent amount in blackjack, but nothing too terrible. It was just like within my gambling budget, so I still had fun. But yeah, it was going really good until the dealer just started hitting the nuts repeatedly.
Yeah, well, welcome to Las Vegas, a city literally made by, people playing blackjack and other table games as well. I guess I should talk about my calling real quick. I also went 5-3 in the calling, but I didn't lose my win in. I lost quite early. I was playing like a fatigue Puffin list where I'm trying to fatigue every single player. I succeeded in fatiguing 5 people, and 2 of my opponents had like 2 cards left in their deck, maybe one. And my last opponent was a Scurv, and he had 1 card left in his deck, but I got by the Scurv specialization. And
Mm,
if I just didn't crack my gold, I think I win the game. And I was really disappointed. And after I lose the match against Scurv, my friend comes up to me and being like, "Oh yeah, did you know that like apparently the Scurv spec is almost always in the same box as a Scurv. So when you play against a Scurv, you're at like at least a 1 in 3 chance of them having the Scurv spec in their deck at non-foil."
yeah, I think if you're using actual boxes to draft, I think it's like 90% chance for there to be Scurv and the Scurv spec together. And I think Scurv appearing is in about like 40% of boxes. But when Scurv does appear, 90% of the time there will be a spec. It's somewhere around there, ballpark.
Yeah, I kind of wish I knew that beforehand, and now I know to just never crack gold against Scurv, because if they play the spec, you demolish them for them playing this like no block, do nothing card
Crack
that's a
bubble.
blue in the late game that like just doesn't do anything. If you just never crack a gold, you can draw cards with like Tipple and stuff. Like it doesn't stop that. It only stops the draw ability from a gold. If you just don't crack your gold, you can't get punished.
I like how you describe your calling experience and talk about fatiguing everyone. And I'm just like thinking about my own calling experience, and it was so different. Basically, like my Marlin deck started out like kind of reasonable playing big attacks. And then I just realized the problem was like This yellow battalion bark just isn't that good when I don't have anything else to do with the other resources. And if I try to like draw a card to arsenal and my arsenals are mostly bad, it's just like I don't really want to sit there and do 3 card 8s. Like that's just not how you win games of Flesh and Blood. So I ended up just adding more and more and more pumps to my deck as the day progressed. And at the end, I think I was playing like 7 pumps and 4 or 5 red arrows in my cannon build, and just like my games were just like I'm losing the entire game, but I might randomly kill my opponent with overpower. I had like one game where I like went to 1, my opponent's at 10, and then I just 15 overpower and kill him. So yeah, that was like basically my entire deck, just trying to sit there and scam people with overpower. It was an experience.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty reasonable. I think my deck was pretty good at beating Marlin trying to do that. Into Marlin, I was playing like 5 or 6 block cards.
Sounds unwinnable.
I had 2 yellow hold the line. Is that what it's called? The block card in common?
On the horizon?
On the horizon, sorry, yeah. I was playing 2 yellow ones, 2 red ones, and I had the thief block card at rare.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like playing all of that into Marlin and just being like, okay, not overpowered, pitch stack it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
And then I'm playing Puffin with the we're gonna be talking about the weapons in this episode as well, but the cogwork blunderbuss, and I'm just attacking with that every single turn. And honestly, that was just good enough to fatigue out almost every deck in the format. And then the one time one of the games I lost, it was pretty like convincingly lost. I did lose to a Marlin that was like 14 overpower, 10 overpower, 10 overpower, and I'm like, okay, that's good enough. The third 10 overpower is really good. The second red harpoon is good. Like your deck's insane.
Yeah. I didn't have the red harpoons, but the funny thing about my deck was it just had like so many pumps that I think one of the things that made it hard on my opponents was like you couldn't really pitch stack the block cards, but because I probably kill you before second cycle, it'll just be like randomly out of nowhere, big overpower.
Okay, yeah, that's really annoying. But then in those spots when they just like randomly have the block card, like they get to survive and like beat you, right?
Yeah, my opponent definitely blocked out a bluefin harpoon that I had for 11 overpower. Yeah, it was really sad. But then I did 15 overpower later and they died, so.
Oh, okay, yeah. The solution to beating people who's blocking out your harpoons is to just send the bigger harpoon with overpower later.
Yeah, you just keep doing it and you keep going, do you have it? And then they go, okay, I don't have it this time. And you're like, okay. But then, yeah, I don't know. Am I winning it? I had this really interesting spot where I could crack gold. I basically had like a 10% chance to hit my last pump and a 50% chance to hit a blue, which meant I could crack my hat and redraw, which gave me about it was like a 15.5% chance to win on the spot. And I ended up blocking and gambling on them not having go again. I would have hit if I just went for it in retrospect. And I'm like, I could have day two'd the calling if I gambled harder, but I felt like just hoping they couldn't do more than 9 damage when I knew their arsenal wasn't go again because they didn't use go again on the turn before was like higher odds because then I see more of my deck and I'm more likely to find the bump. Yeah, it didn't work out. They had go again and I died.
Fair enough. You gonna start talking about Puffin before we talk too much about Vegas?
Yeah, let's do it. So Vegas was a lot of fun. We can move on to the main topic. I know a lot of people have their nats coming up over kind of the next few weeks. So hopefully you can get some of these how to draft guides and they can help you out for your nationals. Okay, do you want to take people through the card breakdown and block values?
Yeah, so as always, we'll just talk about the block values of the commons and the rares of the set. We're talking about Puffin today, so the mech cards, 18 commons and 9 rares. 9 of the commons block for 3 and 9 of them block for 2. Most of the block 2s have galvanize on them. And then 9 rares, there's 7 3 blocks, 0 2 blocks, and then the 2 null blocks.
The null blocks are lubricate, which I don't think is a great card, and then Copper Cog, which I actually think is quite a good card. That's a cog that has 2 counters, and you can crank it if you like. So you often get to like draw a card and have a cog for that turn as well as the following turn.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, honestly, one of the no blocks being the copper cog basically means that all of the mech rares block really well in this set.
Yeah. Yeah, they generally block quite well. Puffin has okay block values, but I do think she's the lowest, sort of. She kind of blocks the worst of the three heroes, is like sort of my feeling in terms of the mech cards. Obviously, Gravy has a bunch of no blocks, so it's complicated, but he can also often loot away those no blocks, and I think the rest of his pool is three blocks. So I think Puffin has the most two blocks at the very least.
And that's also because like we're gonna talk about the pirate cards next. So the pirate cards there's 27 commons and 18 rares. And this is basically a generic pool, because all the heroes in this set is pirates, but only 4 of those block for 3, and 23 of the commons will block for 2. The only commons that do block for 3 in the pirate pool is basically Battalion Bark. Kind of makes this card in the pirate pool very powerful, right? Like you just want 3 blocks in your pool because there isn't that many generic and pirate 3 blocks, and Battalion Bark is just like both a 3 block and just a really powerful card. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, Battalion Bark is great. All the colors are good. I think like red and blue are definitely better than yellow, but even yellow is quite solid.
Yeah, I think the 3 block really does carry that weight though.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Good first cycle, good second cycle. Yeah, Battalion Bark's the house.
And then the pirate rares, there's 18 of them. 13 of them block for 3, 3 of them block for 2, and we have 2 null blocks, but one of them being the Scurv spec that doesn't show up that often. And then there's this really weird damage prevention rare. It's called Throw Caution to the Wind. I really don't know how to evaluate this card, but when this card blocks for 3 from Arsenal, it's kind of insane.
Yeah, I think the card is pretty good. I think if you have lots of cards that block well and your deck is good at getting to second cycle, Throw Caution to the Wind is pretty decent. And I think if your deck doesn't block very well and doesn't go to second cycle very much, Throw Caution to the Wind is not a card you want to be playing. Because once you get to second cycle, you theoretically should know if it's going to hit or not. Also in Gravy Bones, it gets better because you can compass.
You're right. It is very good in Gravy Bones. I lost yesterday. We were playing draft yesterday, and I lost to Throw Caution to the Wind, just like randomly revealing a blue off the top. And I'm like, wow, this card's kind of insane. Like, this is like the only card in the game that I can think of that I just like immediately lose to while sending this overpowered arrow at her.
Yeah, yeah, it is good at stopping overpower. Pretty solid card. Honestly, like so many of these random pirate rare three blocks are like blues, and most of them are pretty solid. Just like blue three block you can play in every deck is like you can take those like super early in the draft. They're just all really good.
They have very small effects, but they just it being a 3 block is good enough in this set. There just isn't that many 3 blocks as we talk about these cards, right? Like all of the generics and the pirate cards basically don't block.
So yeah, three blocks where you can get them, very important. And mostly comes from your class cards, and anytime you can get non-class cards, then very nice.
And then we'll talk about the generics next. There's 28 commons. That's kind of a lot, but it's gonna be a little bit weird. I'm gonna talk about the 2 blocks first. There's 26 actual 2 blocks, but I'm gonna give 3 of them with an asterisk that they are 2.5 blocks. The 2.5 block cards are the what is it called? Rally of the Coast Guard. Basically a reprint of Rally of the Rear Guards, but it costs 1 more and attacks for 1 more. But it has the ability of once per turn you discard a card, and this card gets +3 block value. So it is like a 2-card 5, which is basically a 2.5 block.
Rally pretty decent. Good at stopping overpower. Very good if you have a lot of allies you want to discard. Nice card to have in the set for sure.
And it also works really well with Fiddler's Green, which is a rare from the set. It says it blocks for 1, and it's like when it's put into your graveyard, you gain 3. So like if you can like pair with like Fiddler's Green, the Rally the Coast Guard blocks for 5 and it also gains you 3. So it's like a 2-card 8 if you have like a red Fiddler's Green and any color of the Rally of the Coast Guard. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, when you get to do the discard effects with Fiddler's Green, it feels kind of busted.
And then we have the four block and three block of the set. That's the not the defense reaction, the block card on the horizon. And this all this card does is when you defend with it, you get to look at the top card of the deck. Kind of relevant in this set. Looking at the top card of your deck is like quite a big upside. Now that I've played this set, I thought it would be like a kind of a blank text that you didn't really care about. But when you play with it, like knowing the top card of your deck is kind of relevant.
Yeah, just because of all the gold, especially if you get to block like a go again attack, like they send like a life for a life, you block it for 4, look at the top card, and then you kind of know what your options are in terms of gold, and you can kind of make like the rest of your blocking decisions on the follow up. It's good even outside of that, but that's like a mode that has really that's like the spot where that card has impressed me the most.
We'll talk about the rares. There's 18 generic rares. In generic, the rares don't block as well, and we only have 2 3 blocks, 11 2 blocks, 3 1 block plus life gain, so those are the Fiddler's Greens, and we have 2 null blocks. And the null blocks are quite bad, I think. One of it being Fool's Gold, which is a titanium bauble with an upside.
No. It's a crack bauble with an upside. It's a yellow no block.
Sorry, I meant cracked bauble. You're so right. Titanium bauble is a very good card.
If it was a titanium bauble that you could discard and get a gold, that card would be sick.
Yeah, I would play that card a lot. Sorry. This is a cracked bauble. It's a yellow strip, no block. I guess if you can discard it to like rally the Coast Guard, it's kind of sick, but yeah, I wouldn't rely on that.
I would think of this as a strictly better crack bauble and not much else.
I really want to try this card, but like I had a pick yesterday and during the draft, and it was like pick 9 or 10. I see this Fool's Gold and I go, ooh, do I pick this Fool's Gold and try like making like a Rally the Coast Guard deck? And then I thought about it and I thought about it. I'm like, wow, picking this card over 5 other cards seems so wrong that I couldn't do it to myself.
I have not played the card, but I've seen my opponents play with the card, and every time my opponent plays with the card, they're always kind of sad. So I haven't been impressed by this one. But yeah, basically the generics have very, very low block values, almost all of them being 2 blocks outside of the block card and the rally, the coast guards. And then, because one card we didn't mention that I do want to talk about is the Sirens of the Safe Harbor. This at red is the 2 for 6 that blocks for 2 and gains a life. This is sort of like an honorary 3 block. It, of course, is not a 3 block for the purposes of stopping Treasure Island, and you don't gain the life until the combat chain closes. I do see some people like shortcutting this and gaining the life right away. It's not how the card works, and especially if there's go again, that's pretty relevant. But this card is pretty close to a 3 block, and I think this card's like honestly a little bit underrated. If you think of just as this is just like a 2 for 7 red that blocks for 3, it's like not exactly what the card does, but I think it's like the closest thing to what the card does.
I think it also costing 2 is super relevant, and like it pairs really well with like one cost like Life for a Life or something like that. If we go pitch a blue Life for a Life into Sirens, gaining 2 life on that turn is kind of insane as well.
And you also can discard it in a pinch to like Gravy Bones or Rally, gain a life. Not usually what you want to be doing, but I have survived Marlin Overpower with this, for example. And yeah, just a nice extra mode of the card.
Yeah, I really like Sirens. I actually like it so much that I wanted to play this in Victor in Commoner. Unfortunately, I woke up at 10:45 a.m. on Sunday, which is 45 minutes over when Commoner started on Sunday, so I didn't get to play Commoner on Sunday. Yeah, that was my own fault. But I was going to play Sirens of the Safe Harbor in Victor. It's just like a slightly better Fyandal's fighting spirit in Victor, in the sense of like you wanted to block with the yellow sirens to trigger your helmet, and sadness. Waking up too late is always sadness.
Yeah, it definitely happens. So anyways, that is the block breakdown. Basically, the big takeaway, there's pirate block 3s at rare, and otherwise, most of your block cards are going to be coming from your class pool. And Puffin in particular has quite a few 2 blocks. They do galvanize. We'll talk about that more later. But yeah, I think a lot of Puffin decks can end up having pretty low block values depending on how you draft them, which can often kind of lean her a little bit aggressive. And yeah, so into our main topic. I think one of the things that most Puffin decks, at least the aggressive leaning ones, need to answer is the question of how do you get your first gold? Because Puffin is kind of reliant on the cogs to make a lot of her commons work, like the cloud skiffs and the sky skimmers need cogs to get go again or +1. Your weapons use the cogs, and then of course if you can crank twice, you get to draw a card, which is really powerful. So I think Puffin is like the most gold reliant of the three heroes most of the time. And because of this, you kind of need to get that first gold rolling, and then you can usually keep getting gold. But getting that first gold is very, very important. So there's kind of like a few ways to do this. One way is to go wide with lots of natural go again. Another way is to go tall. You can do this with big attacks like Battalion Bark, where 9 is just kind of hard to block out. Or you can do like a 1 for 4 pump with a 2-cost mech card to do like a 3-card 10. Again, like 10 is just kind of an unpleasant number for opponents to block out and will often get you gold. And the last way is with the mutinies. So you can sometimes take a hit from your opponent, mutiny, steal their gold, and then you can be online.
Which one do you think of these options that Puffin is the best at doing? Like, do you think you want to like play Barks a lot, or do you think you want to go like wide go again? Like, do you have like a preference of which type of like how you want to get your first gold best with Puffin?
I usually like a combination. Like I think having go again is kind of the most premium way to do this, but go again is like pretty contested in the set. So I like having some go again and then a few pumps, but not too many because they block 2. In addition, with some 2 for 6s, ideally the rares that block for 3. You can use Tough Old Runge, but again, that's like adding more 2 blocks to your deck. And then the mutinies are sort of like not your main way to do it, but having like 1 to 2 mutinies in your deck, I do think is like pretty nice.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. The go again is kind of hard to come by in this set. Like, I like the image I have about mechanologist usually is to have boost, but none of the cards in this set actually have boost, which means that the the mech cards, they don't naturally have go again, unlike the other sets. So your go again has to come from your generics, right?
Yeah, so a lot of your go again sources are going to be things like Ravenous Rabble, Life for a Life, Scar for a Scar, and these are cards that every deck wants because every deck is a little bit constrained on action points in this set, and they're just very good cards. So, pick these up when you can, but these are just pretty high picks, especially with Gravy Bones being in the set where you need ways to clear allies, and these are just like great ways to clear allies. These picks go pretty early. So, yeah, if you can get a bunch of these, it definitely helps your Puffin deck out. Don't expect to be like flush with them. That's not really like very realistic, I suppose.
Then do you want to move on and talk about some of the equipment that Puffin gets access to?
Yeah, so I think the equipment and Puffin are like some of the biggest signals for Puffin. They're some of the best Puffin cards. They're almost worth like 2 equipments worth of value. Rust Belt is Battle Worn 1, and then you can tap a cog to get a resource. So it can both make a resource and block for 1. The tapping a cog to get the resource is not free. So this is, I think it's better than Buccaneer's Bounty, but not so much better. Buccaneer's Bounty is still very, very good. And then Unicycle is the other mech equipment. This is also Battle Worn 1, and it has an instant destroy it, untap a cog. This effect is so incredibly powerful. You have so many outlets for cogs, and it can just do so much for you. Like this can transfer into like go again on the blunderbuss or an extra attack on Spitfire, which is 2 points. It can translate into another go again or +1 onto like a cloud skiff or a sky skimmer, and it pairs very nicely with the rares Cogwork Zeppelin and Cloud City Steamboat, which and can effectively translate into like a damage or an extra cog. So yeah, Unicycle I think is like probably the maybe second best mech card. It's way up there. It's like one of the best mech cards in the set.
I feel like compared to the other classes, these two, the Rust Belt and the Unicycle, are the ones that are clearly worth 2 points of value when you get to start with it, right?
Yeah, they're incredibly strong, and I think the Puffin decks that get to play Rust Belt and Unicycle and fill out the rest of their equipment suite are like you can just like feel the power level of the equipment. It's quite impressive.
What about the other equipment? I feel like one of my favorite equipment suites in the set overall, even for all the heroes, would be the Nimblism package, which will be Swift Strike and Quick Clicks. Quick Clicks goes directly against Unicycle because they're both leg pieces, but Swift Strike is if you played a Nimblism this turn, you get +2 power. Quick Clicks is if you played a Nimblism, your next attack will get go again. These are also very powerful equipment, right?
Yeah, they are very, very good. Nimblism just kind of fits into Puffin very nicely as go again, and many of your attacks are 1 and 0 cost. So that's really nice. And the Swift Strike gloves can help you kind of push through damage. So playing a Nimblism as essentially like a 0 for 5 is really good. And I think even with just like one Nimblism, you can play these gloves and be reasonably happy with it. It gets even better if you have two. For the quick clicks specifically, I think I kind of want minimum 2, maybe 3 Nimblisms in my deck. It could be like 2 red, 1 yellow is like fine. And then you want Nimbies in your deck as well, which is the 0 for 3 that when you attack with it, you may search your deck for a Nimblism and put it into your hand, reveal it, put it into your hand. And the idea here is you kind of like arsenal either Nimblism or Nimby. Then you get to go Nimblism, Nimby, give it go again with quick clicks, search another Nimblism, and just have a giant turn. So that setup is really nice, but I think I kind of want the like multiple Nimblisms with the Nimbies to play quick clicks. If you don't have Unicycle, then it's a lot lower cost, but I think I would want like a pretty big package in Puffin to give up Unicycle for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing I really like about Quick Clicks in Puffin is that Puffin is one of those heroes that your opponent is very incentivized to stop you from making gold. So you end up in these spots where there's like 5 or 6 counters on Treasure Island because you're blocking them out, they're blocking you out, and once you have like Quick Clicks plus Nimblism, you get to do like one of the things you said earlier about how to get your first gold and go wide with natural go again. You don't need the natural go again. The quick clicks will give you the go again to actually be able to push over the damage, which I find very useful for getting your first gold. And in those scenarios, you typically don't make 1 gold, you make like 4 gold. I find like just having that Nimblism package be very powerful in Puffin.
And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of other equipment, fish fingers, and so on. The light speed gloves or whatever they're called. Most of these are basically Blade Break 1 that have some additional effect. I think which one you have exactly is not the most consequential. For the headpiece, I do slightly prefer the Helmsman Peak that lets you know the top card of your deck because Puffin's very good at drawing cards with the like twice. If you crank twice in the same turn, you draw. And sometimes like whether or not you want to draw, especially when you're low on gold, is like not super clear because if you draw into a blue that's not good to Arsenal, it's like not really that exciting. So Helmsman Peak, I think, is like one that I'll mention, but for the most part, you're pretty happy to have any Blade Break 1, and I'm not passing up the like the tricorn that blocks 1. I'm pretty happy to take that quite highly as well. Just if I had a choice, I would take the Helmsman.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think in general there isn't that many headpieces that actually block in the set. So just getting any headpiece that block for 1 is kind of nice. I think it's just Tricorn and the Hellsman's Peak that Puffin gets to play that actually blocks. We have the bandana, but I don't count that as an equipment at this point.
Yeah. I think it has like maybe some very niche use cases, but yeah, the bandana is not really a real card.
Yeah, at least I haven't found a way to make it good, and maybe that will change by the end of the season. But at least for now, I'm kind of discounting that card.
I heard something about like putting a blue battalion bark back and golding into it, but like that's like not an you're gonna do this every game kind of thing. It's like in a fatigue end game, maybe you can do it and it's better than not having it, but it sounds pretty niche.
Then let's talk about the key cards for Puffin next. So what cards are you really looking for in Puffin, or what do you think is the best cards in Puffin right now?
I think easily the best card is Clockwork Zeppelin, particularly the red one. This is a 2 for 6 at red that blocks 3. It has a twice per turn instant that you can tap a cog and give it +1. And when it hits, you can tap and untap cog you control. And if you do, you make a a golden cog. This on hit is a little bit deceptive if you haven't played against it, because when they make the cog, they can crank it to get go again. So it's like essentially on hit go again if they want it to be. They can also just leave the cog for next turn, but they can on hit go again. And if they've activated Puffin, or if they can activate Puffin, which if it hits, they will be able to because they would have gotten a gold from Treasure Island, they can draw a card because they'll have like one from Puffin, one from the Clockwork Zeppelin. So often this is on hit go again, draw a card, and its baseline is a 2 for 6 that blocks 3 that you can pump with your cogs. So I think Clockwork Zeppelin is just like by far the best Puffin card, and when you can pump this, it's like honestly terrifying. Like when Clockwork Zeppelin comes in for like 13, and then they have like some cogs and they have like the unicycle, so they can untap, they can like buff up the Zeppelin, then untap the cog, and then make another cog and draw a card. It's just like, I don't know. Like you often just can't, you look at it and it's like, I can't even block this if I wanted to.
Yeah, you put your opponent in a really awkward spot. I feel that this is like the case for all of the mech cards with the ability that you can tap a cog to give it power. But like you put them in a really awkward spot and being like, oh my god, I can like give you my whole hand and try and block this out, but then you're just gonna tap all the cogs you have and like punch one over. You're gonna end up getting a gold from Treasure Island. You won't be able they won't be able to like tap a cog to give it go again anymore because like they'll need to use all of it to like push over the top. But then like they're pretty happy with gaining a gold and leaking some damage and ripping every card in your hand. So like yeah, this card swings games really hard just by playing one.
Yeah. And I find that unicycle with this card is just like really incredible for like you have the one cog, you can give it +1, then you can untap it, then you can get the cog, you draw a card, then you send like a 2 for 6, and it's like, holy, I took 7 damage, they got a gold, and like, I don't know. I blocked my entire hand. It's like, yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Well, how do you like the yellow ones?
The yellow ones are still good. They're pretty solid. I don't know. They're worse than the reds. They're probably close to like the red sky skimmers and cloud skiffs though. They're really good, and the blue is a solid blue. I think honestly all the colors of Clockwork Zeppelin are good, but the red is like bomb level card.
Yeah, red's a majestic level card, honestly.
But honestly, like very happy to play the yellows. Honestly, yeah, just play as many copies of this card as you can in all the colors. Even the blue one is like so annoying.
At the baseline, the blue one is a blue 3 block. Like it's just a good card.
Yeah, and it's also just a blue that you can arsenal. Like, like I arsenaled this thing and I like made a cog, put a 1 for 4 on it, and I'm like, attack you for 8. If you don't block it, draw a card and get go again. And they're just like, okay, like why is this your blue plus like 1 red? It's like a 3-card hand. And like, yeah, maybe like a 3-card 9 isn't like the most exciting thing, but on your like blue 3 block that you might randomly draw and then you can arsenal, it's like, this is pretty good.
Yeah, when a blue is making your opponent block with 3 cards from hand, yeah, that's pretty good.
After Cogwork Zeppelin, I think Perk Up is like another standout card. This is the 1 for 4 pump that pumps your next Mechanologist card, and it untaps your hero. The main use for this card is that you can activate Puffin twice, which does take 2 gold, but allows you to draw a card. So it can be a 1 for 4 draw a card, make 2 cogs. Really, really strong. Lets you do some pretty absurd turns, honestly. And this card also has a hidden mode of there are quite a few tap effects like Walk the Plank. And I've been in spots where I'm like, my opponent casts Walk the Plank, and I'm like, no, I can't draw off a Perk Up. And then I think about it a bit more. I'm just like, well, I can't draw, but I can just like play my turn normally and ignore the disruption, and like that's still really good.
When your opponent like walk the planks you and their on hit is like tap, that's their upside, and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna untap my card and make a cog anyways. Like, yeah, my turn didn't work if I didn't have a cog, but Perk Up lets me have a cog no matter what is kind of insane.
Yeah, it's like not the main mode of the card, but I think that its main mode being incredible, and then it also just like getting you out of some of the kind of potentially game losing spots is yeah, I think this is probably Puffin's best common.
Definitely Puffin's best common. I'll be pretty happy with 2 perk ups.
I guess the next comment I'll mention is Goldwing Turbine, particularly the red. This is a 2 cost plus 3 pump that makes a cog. Notably, it doesn't have go again, but if you make the cog, you can crank it and then you get your action point back. So it kind of has go again. And this is one of the 2 cogs you need to draw a card. So if you have a gold, you can play this as essentially like a 2 for 3 go again that draws a card, which is really good. And honestly, all the colors of this card are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the yellow and the blue. I think they're really important, in particular in the Spitfire builds, because you're a little more cog reliant. We'll talk about that more soon, but it really helps enable some of those Spitfire turns and some of your Sky Skimmers and stuff like that. And the more blunderbuss builds, I don't think want this card quite as highly.
I think the Blunderbuss build still wants this card just because it's a 3 block.
It's still good, but it's like, I think it's like one of the best cards in Spitfire, whereas I think it's like a reasonable card in Blunderbuss, I guess.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's like you require this card for the Spitfire to work. The Blunderbuss just wants this card because it's a 3 block. Like, quite different.
Yeah, I think this is like kind of the card that enables Spitfire. You need multiples of these to play Spitfire, and if you can, it's pretty strong. But if you don't have them, you're probably a Blunderbuss deck, is like kind of how I think about this card.
That makes sense. And I see two more cards on this list. You have Sky Skimmer Red and Cloud Skiff Red. They're basically the same card, right?
Yeah, they're just 0 for 4 and 1 for 5s, and then they have a once per turn instant to either give it +1 or go again. These cards are really awkward to block, and anytime you have a 0 for 4 go again or a 1 for 5 go again, that's super, super strong. The downside of these cards is that they need cogs to be powerful, because if you just send a 0 for 4 or 1 for 5 on its own, not super exciting, but they block 3 and they do a powerful thing when you have the cogs. So I do think that these are like really good reasons to be Puffin. And honestly, the Cloud Skiff wears buffs reasonably well too. The 1 for 4 buff, if you put a buff on it, it's a 2 for 9.
Yeah, it's fine. It's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, 3 card 9. That's like just like hard casting a Battalion Bark off of 2 blues. So it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it is very solid. What do you think about the yellow ones or the blue ones?
Still good. The blues are block 3s that can potentially be go again. The blue Cloud Skiff is like really annoying when your opponent's at 1, because they have to block it for 4 and then you just give it go again. So I've been really impressed by blue Cloud Skiff actually for closing games, which is something Puffin can have trouble with actually. So it's notable. And then the yellows I think are also pretty solid. Just like yellow 3 blocks. Some of Puffin's turns function okay off of a yellow. And the rate on them is still okay. Like if you have a 1 for 4 go again or a 0 for 3 go again, yes, you have to do some work for them, but it's not bad. So they're not like super high picks, but I think that they're like solid role players.
I think the biggest note about all of these key cards are they all happen to be the Mech 3 blocks. And I feel like just any of the Mech 3 blocks are just kind of good. And I guess like, the card we didn't talk about is the Cloud City Steamboat at rare, but like that card's still also a pretty powerful card. So I would still pick that card pretty highly.
2 for 6 wears buffs well to do that 3 card 10 that we talked about. And if you have cogs, you can convert them into value. Yeah, Cloud City Steamboat is a lot worse than Zeppelin, but still very good.
I think the next section of cards we're going to talk about will be the natural go again pile. And I feel like this card is, or this list of card is just like good in everyone. How do you want to talk about this? You just want to like list them out and then just talk them about as a whole?
So maybe like, what do you think are the best natural go agains?
My favorite one is just Ravenous Rabble. Yesterday I realized something, and unlike some of the other sets, Rabble feels like it comes in for 2 a lot more often than some of the other sets where you get to play, where you want to be playing a lot more reds in your decks. But in this set, you kind of want to play like a lot more blues in your decks. So like Rabble misses quite a bit more. So it comes in for 2 go again a lot. And I've come to this realization. This is, if you guys listen to this podcast for a long time now, you might remember from Monarch, one of my favorite cards from the set was like Yellow Brandish, which was a card that was a yellow card that blocked for 2 and attacked for 2. Kind of did nothing else, but that's what Rabble feels like to me in this set. Is like it just always converts for 2, it blocks for 2, attacks for 2, go again. And with the biggest upside of it sometimes comes in for 4 at a random point in the game and just like demolishes your opponent.
Yeah, I do think Rapple's pretty sweet. I've liked this card quite a lot in this set. It's a pretty high pick. I think my favorite go again has to be Scar for a Scar, though. Scar for a Scar is so good.
Scar for Scar is so good, but you know what the problem I have with Scar for Scar?
What's that?
You have to give your opponent gold for Scar for Scar to be good.
Ah.
Like, there's so many times where I look at a hand with Scar for Scar and I go, I need to take damage this turn for me to be able to, like, send the Scar for Scar with go again and convert my turn, like, in the optimal, like, you know, power output. Like, you look at your hand, you have, like, a Scar for a Scar and let's say, like a 0 for 4 or something, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna block with 2 cards, take some damage, Scar for a Scar, 0 for 4, something like that, right? Like, and I'm just like, man, but that means I need to give my opponent like 3 gold, and I go, oh, do I just block with this card for 2? And I'm always just like in this, like, I wouldn't call it a pickle, but like, just like I feel like I don't want to give my opponent a gold, but then I'm like, I want to convert my hand. Whereas like I look at a Ravenous Rabble and I'm like, ugh, it might come in for 2 anyways. I block for 2.
That's fair. I feel like I'm okay with Scar for a Scar. I'm okay with giving my opponents gold sometimes. What I'll say is that I think because at least the way I like to draft Puffin leans pretty aggressive. Taking some damage just to send back a big turn and get your gold rolling feels pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with Scar for a Scar.
Does that make sense? Yeah. You do need to somehow get your first gold. So having a 0 for 4 go again is like very powerful in that to do that.
The worst Scar for a Scar is also in this set. Life for a Life. This is a 1 for 4 that has go again if you have less life, and it has on hit gain a life. It's not always worst Scar for a Scar because sometimes you have an extra resource and it's just on hit gain a life, which is pretty sick. Yeah, it's still very good. It's largely worst Scar for a Scar. It does pair well with 2 for 6s, which Puffin does have, so pretty good card.
Yeah, reasonable. Do you guys want to talk about all the other cards pretty quickly? Because they're all going to be like kind of similar in how you play them. Obviously, they're going to be very empowerable, but I don't think it's going to be that relevant. So we have like Saltwater Swell that you want. Golden Tipple is 1 for 3 go again. We have Murderous Rabble at blue, which is like a reverse Rabble. We should talk about Murderous Rabble a little bit. This card is really powerful.
Yeah, it's just a blue 3 block that you reveal the top card and gets plus power equal to its pitch. Its base is 0. In second cycle, this is just 3 go again, which is really strong. It's also a blue 3 block. I don't know. Murderous Rabble is just like super flexible and really, really premium.
Mm-hmm. This is a rare. I kind of forgot about this card until I, looked at it in the list. This is definitely better than Ravenous Rabble, but I was thinking the concept of commons, which one I like the best. But yeah, if we include rares, Murderous Rabble is definitely better than it.
Yeah, it's a rare, and I believe it is also quite short printed. So you don't get to play this one that often, but it is very, very, very good. Golden Tipple, I think, is like a power card, and Marlin and Gravy, and we'll talk about them. We'll talk about this card quite a bit when we get to them. And Puffin is just okay. It's mostly a 1 for 3 go again. You can use it to get your first gold, which is kind of nice if you have some yellows, and many Puffin decks do have some yellows, but you don't really want to be discarding too many cards.
And then we have Swift Water Sloop, which is a 2 for 6 go again if you've like done something else on the turn, usually crack a gold. Pretty powerful card. Not much to say about it. And we have the Nimblisms, like the Nimblism package. If you can have the quick clicks and stuff like that, that's also a good source of go again. I feel like we should talk about some of the Majestics that are messed up in Puffin, and I feel like the best limited Puffin M is Golden Skywarden. This card almost always blocks for 4 or more, and it like replenishes your gold whenever you do block with it. It's been so crazy every single time I've seen this card being used to block with.
Yeah, it is strong. It does need to line up. I think it's a card that makes the better your Puffin deck is, the better this card is. I've had a really bad Puffin deck with this, and it didn't do very much. Like, if your deck's not very good at like having cogs laying around, this card is not very good. But if your deck has routinely a bunch of cogs laying around, Golden Skywarden is like an insane card.
Well, you only really need 1 golden cog for this card to block for 4, right?
Block 3, right?
If you have 1 cog, you can block with it, break the cog, make a gold, then you can break the gold and block for 4.
That's fair.
Yeah, you don't have to like you have to break the cog to repeat the process on the Golden Sky Warden, but you can always break a gold to just have this card be a 3 block.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm like pretty happy with like being able to convert a gold for 1 point of value, and I'm usually looking for ways to convert gold into value. So like I'm usually not scared or like I would use every opportunity I can to convert a gold into a point of value. And Golden Sky Warden feels like a card that like you have a golden cog on the board, you're just like, oh, this is a like I'm definitely breaking the golden cog, and then I'm breaking the first gold. Like on the last trigger of this card, I'm always breaking the gold if it makes sense to. Like I'm not gonna overblock a card, but you know, my opponent's attacking for like 4. I'm almost always gonna break the gold. And I guess maybe if it's not the last one, but if I have like 2 gold, I'm almost always breaking the second gold.
I feel like in other heroes, it's like a lot more true. In Puffin, it's like if you have a lot of gold, you can just do this and snap it off. But sometimes even 2 gold, like sometimes you want 2 gold. Like perk up is just like a 2 gold play that's really strong. So if you have like perk ups in your deck, you want to stay on 2 gold. And as the game gets like close to the end, if you like run out of gold, it's like kind of a disaster. So I think that there's like a lot of spots where like yes, gold and skyward are very good, but I don't think it's like a snap crack your gold for a 1 block.
I don't know because like I feel like the games where I lose with Puffin is the games where my gold didn't convert well, and
Oh,
like
I feel like it's like the games I lose with Puffer are the games where I didn't get gold.
hmm, interesting.
I feel like I don't usually have a problem converting my gold.
I feel like sometimes like it feels pretty bad to just like make a cog and not be able to get like a full point of value from it, and that's like usually where I end up like losing games is like I play like a golden like gold wing turbine and draw a random card, and that like random card draw just didn't do enough is usually how I like lose the game. So I don't really rely on like a random draw that often on Puffin. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, it might be. I think we tend to draft slightly different. Like, I think you tend to draft more Blunderbuss, and I tend to draft more Spitfire. So it might be a difference there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That would make sense because if you are playing Blunderbuss, you don't actually have to make a cog to. You don't have to use your gold to attack with Spitfire. So I guess you are right there. If you are playing Spitfire, you do need to keep more of your gold around just to be able to attack with your weapon.
So yeah, Golden Skywarden, good card. I guess on the topic of the 2 block galvanized cards, there's Teeth of the Cog and Tough Old Wrench. These block for 2. They're not very high picks. You should be able to get them pretty late, but they're pretty solid includes. The blues are nice because you can block with it and keep a cog around. Basically, like you galvanize the cog, you get a new golden cog, you don't crank it, you have a cog on your following turn, which is quite nice. And you can also block with 2 of them to block 4 and draw a card. Basically, if you have 1 cog out, you can destroy the cog, make a new cog, crank it. You don't get the action point, but you can crank it. And then the second trigger happens and resolves. You break the new cog that you just made off the first one, get another cog, crank it, and then you'll draw a card. We kind of mentioned that like the random draws are not always good, so this works best on like a go again attack and isn't something you're doing all the time. But it's a nice mode to know that you're able to do it if you need to.
Hmm. I feel like this sometimes is a trap too, right? Like you don't really want to convert 2 cards for value draw a card. It's like not that good if you think about it in like card economy wise.
It's like good value now, but bad like deck damage value.
Yeah, it's really bad deck value, but it's also just like not that high of a value, right? Like if you let's say you like block for 4 with 2 cards and draw a card and you draw another 2 block, like that was the 3 cards. That's a 2 card 6, which is the same as having 2 3 blocks if you draw a 2 block. And if you draw a 3 block, you're up 1 point, so it was like a 2 card 7, which is reasonable, but it's not like so far ahead of like what you want to be doing.
Yeah, but they were 2 blocks.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm
Like
just
you're not playing these over 3 blocks, but like they're pretty solid 2 blocks is how I would put it.
yeah, that would make sense. But I think what I wanted to say was like I feel like when you explain it that way, people go like, Oh wow, that's kind of insane. And like they like try and set this up,
That's fair. That's fair.
and you're just like setting trying to get this to work isn't really worth your time, right?
Yeah, I think just keeping the cog around is the mode that you do more often, to be honest. There's also this really weird thing with Puffin where if Puffin has 0 gold but has a cog laying around and your turn kind of sucks, you might just be better off not attacking her because of these galvanized cards potentially bailing her out. Like I've been in spots where I attack a Puffin and then they're like, "Yes, I can win the game now," and I'm like, "Oh no, I should have just passed."
That's true. Like with Puffin has no gold, no cogs, it's really hard for them to convert their hands unless they have like the natural go again cards that we talked about earlier. And because all the heroes want these natural go again cards, they are limited to like having like one rabble and one scar in their deck or something similar to that. You know, if they have like a bunch of cards in their hand and they're like, how do I get go again? Block with this galvanized card. Have a cog left. There we go. This is my go again source.
I'll say this is where Goldwing Turbine like really shines, and why I think it's so good is like you'll have opponents play into these lines, and then you can be like Goldwing Turbine, Cloud Skiff, 8. And it's like, okay, this can like pump up to 9 and get a gold. If I don't block, this is go again, and they can potentially activate Puffin and draw a card. Like it gets really awkward really fast. So Goldwing Turbine does like bail you out of these moments. And honestly, that's why even like the yellows and the blues are good because yeah, you don't really want to cast the blue one for +1, but a blue block 3 that can like fix your hand is very, very good.
It's one of those blues where when your opponent leaves you with 4 cards, it lets you convert.
Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking of it. And the rest of the time it's just a blue block 3, which is great. So yeah, we like Goldwing Turbines. Okay, next we'll move on to the weapons. Do you want to talk about Blunderbuss? Because I think you've had more success with that than I have.
Yeah, yeah. So the loadout that I prefer is Cogworks Blunderbuss. I think I prioritize cards slightly differently, so like I don't end up with a Spitfire deck that often. But Cogworks Blunderbuss is the 2 cost weapon for 2, and you can tap a cog. It's worded weirdly, but basically it gets go again if you tap a cog. But you have to do it before you attack with the weapon, so like your opponent gets to know if it has go again or not. And is the only weapon in the set that requires 0 cards from deck to convert for damage. It's the best weapon at converting cogs into go again value. So if your deck requires some, go again or is lacking in go again, it is the best card of like turning cogs into go again value. In this set, you're gonna have a hard time converting like 4 card hands. If you have a blunderbuss, you can almost always convert a 4 card hand as long as you have a cog. I think the biggest upside with the blunderbuss is that it pairs the best with all the 4 cost boats. So that's gonna be the HMS cycle, which is the yellow 4 cost boats, and the battalion bark. So what you get to do is if you have a gold, you can activate Puffin, make a cog. Tap the cog for the blunderbuss, pitch a blue, attack for 2. Then you can pitch another blue and attack with any of the boats. And if you have a red battalion bark, it'll come for 9. If you have, let's say, a HMS Kraken, it'll come in for 7 overpower with an on hit destroy an item then control. It kind of pairs really well with these 4 cost boats and lets you have with a red bark, it'll be a 3 card 11, which is significantly above rate. And it being 2 then 9 is also relevant as well for the Treasure Island breakpoints.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I suppose you could also do like a blunderbuss loop 2 cost type curve. It's probably like a little bit less consistent, but it would work out resource wise as well.
Yeah, if you have like a Swift Water Sloop, you can do something like attack with Blunderbuss for 2 go again, Swift Water Sloop for 6 go again, and then, I guess the best one would be like the Sirens of the Safe Harbor, and you can go like 2 for 6 when I close the combat chain, gain a life, which is a very powerful turn. It's like a 4 card 14 gain a life.
I think with the blunderbuss, maybe my take is that like one of the things you really need to make this work is you need very good block values because you're kind of this like good stuff block out deny treasure play value style deck. And if you don't have good block values, this falls apart pretty quickly. The other thing I'll say about Blunderbuss is it works really well with the boats, but on its own, it's pretty below rate. Like 2 cost for 2 damage and your action point is below rate. And yes, you can give it go again with the cog, but like the golds are kind of worth value too. They're kind of worth like one ish. So even if you're spending 2 resources and a gold for 2 go again, it's like not a super great deal. You can put the buffs on it to get like a 2 card 6, but there's a lot of 2 card 7s in the format. So Blunderbuss gives you like a lot of flexibility and reliability, but it's not like Searing Emberblade and Fi, where you want to swing Searing Emberblade every turn and like that's a great turn. It's like this is a thing you can do. Is kind of how I would think about Blunderbuss.
Yeah, I think you don't want to be swinging with Blunderbuss unless you have a reason to swing with Blunderbuss. That be deck damage, that be break points, that be converting your hand. I don't know what that reason would be, but if you don't have a reason to swing Blunderbuss, it might be a mistake to swing Blunderbuss.
Yeah, Blunderbuss can play like an okay, fair game. Personally, I want to explore this archetype more. My experience so far has been that this archetype is like a little too fair, and I haven't been like super impressed with it. But I might be underrating it.
You gotta draft the Rally the Coast Guards, Fiddler's Greens. You gotta draft the On the Horizons really highly. You're just trying to block your opponent out and be you're the guardian of the format, Yuki.
But I feel like when my opponents do this to me, I just kill them if my deck's reasonable.
This is why you gotta be the guardian of the format. You're gonna win by 1 life, and you're gonna deck them out. That's what you're trying to do.
I think maybe my problem is that I don't believe in fatigue in this format. I feel like fatigue is like kind of fake.
Look, all I have to say is if you start first picking yellow 3 block cards, that's how you're supposed to do it. I wouldn't recommend this unless you're like if you make one misplay with this deck, or like if you just like end up not swinging a blunderbuss one time too little, you're not gonna be able to fatigue your opponent. But I feel like if you get like a density of 3 blocks, a density of 4 blocks, it's like enough on hits that like your opponent would want to block you and disrupt. You do end up with this like deck where you're Puffin, they try to prevent you from making gold, and then you're like, I actually don't need to hit you, I'm just trying to pressure you on deck damage. And by the time they realize that you're not really trying to kill them, it's too late for them.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
The one thing I will say, the 3 for 7s that are 2 blocks are traps more than good in this variant of the deck.
I think like my observation about the 3 for 7s is that they're good. Most decks want a few of them because it's like a really great floor for a 2 card hand. You can have too many pretty quickly because you can only play one per turn, and if you draw multiples, they block for 2. So just having like 6 3 for 7 2 blocks is like not really that good in general. Like I usually want like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I feel like this is like a shift from when we first saw the set, where I was just like, oh, I'll play like every 3 for 7, and I feel like I've been slowly but surely like having these 3 for 7s 2 blocks be lower on my list, and I'm playing less and less of them.
That being said, the first like 2 of them is good in almost every deck. There's a couple exceptions, but almost every deck is happy to play like 2 3 for 7s. I would
Yeah.
say.
Rally the Coast Guards don't count because of the 2.5 block. 2.5 blocks are good enough.
Okay, on to Spitfire. Spitfire's big draw is that it's actually quite an efficient weapon. 2 or 3 damage if you have 2 cogs for 0 cost is very good. And I think overall this weapon is more powerful than Blunderbuss, but harder to enable. My experience with Spitfire is you don't use it that much, but if I attack with it like 2 or 3 times in a game, it's already like pretty good because I'm kind of getting 4 to 6 value out of like, I'm going to say nowhere in quotations. It's not literally nowhere, but because it does cost you a gold or a cog, it's not free, but it's pretty good. Spitfire kind of asks a lot of your deck to be able to play. It requires both go again because Spitfire itself doesn't have go again. So and if all you're doing is firing Spitfire, it's not great. So you need go again, or like pumps to pump up your Spitfire. And then attack with it, which are cards that have go again. And you also need cog generation so that you can fire the Spitfire. And sometimes you need multiples, so you can do like a turn where you have the Goldwing Turbine, you use Puffin, you draw a card, you come in with a Cloud Skiff for 8, you give it go again, you shoot with a Spitfire for 2. That's like a turn that you could do. You can also do the Cogwing Turbine plus 1 for 4 pump, and then Spitfire for 10 is like a really solid 3 card 10 draw card. So yeah, Spitfire has some like very, very powerful lines available to it. Its downside is it can be pretty unreliable when you don't have gold. So I think some Spitfire decks will flex into Blunderbuss against Gravy Bones, so you just have a reliable way to clear some of the allies. And the other downside of this weapon is it's not really like a real fatigue weapon. We mentioned Cogworks Blunderbuss, you can just shoot it to get 2 damage, no cards out of deck. This one, you have to have the gold to shoot it. So if you ever get to a spot where like they're out of cards and you have a gold, you can shoot them for 2 over and over and over again because you keep getting the gold back from Treasure Island. But if they're able to block it out, you can wind up in a spot where you can't attack with the weapon. So just be aware of this because sometimes I think the Spitfire decks do fatigue their opponents by damage because your output can be really, really above rate. And managing that gold in the end game is quite important.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Spitfire is very difficult to put together. You do really need to be careful with Spitfire when you are drafting. So, like, you need a lot of the go again, but you also need the gold generation, you need the cog generation. And you do have to, like, be careful not to have, like, too much of one thing. Like, if you just have, like, too much natural go again, it just, like, might not be a Spitfire deck. And if you have like too much cog generation but not enough like go against stuff, like you're gonna end up in a deck where you're just like, how do I ever attack with Spitfire? So I feel like this one requires a little bit more practice too, right?
Yeah, and I think some of the lines are also a little bit tricky. There's like a lot of like small things you can do, especially with Unicycle, that are quite interesting. A card that I'll call out in Spitfire specifically as being deceptively good is Tighten the Screws. This is a 1 for 4 pump that untaps a cog. This card's quite good in Spitfire because untapping the cog will often allow you to Spitfire. So if you're on like a 1 cog turn where you do like a Cloud Skiff with Go Again, you can then tighten the screws and then Spitfire for 6. Is really solid. Or you can also do like a 1 card play of activate Puffin, make a cog, activate Rust Belt, get a resource, play Tighten the Screws, untap the cog, and then do like a 1 card 6. It does require a gold in your Rust Belt, but 1 card 6 is like really solid in some spots. So yeah, Tighten the Screws is like pretty good. It's not as good as Perk Up, but it's like pretty solid in Spitfire.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Spitfire attacking for like 0 resources just makes feel like Titan the Screws is like a 1 for 6. Not no go again, but it's like a 1 for 6 chain ender.
Yeah, exactly. If you are able to pair it with like a Cloud Skiff or Skimmer, it's like really, really solid. So I've been pretty impressed by Titan Screws with Spitfire.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then do you want to talk about the overrated and underrated cards? And I guess you already talked about Titan the Screws, which was our only underrated card on this list right now.
Yeah, we can do that. So for overrated cards, I'm going to put the other 1 for 4 pump, draw back the hammer. It's still fine because you want some 1 for 4 pumps, but I do think this is like a little bit fillerish. The biggest thing I would say is like if your deck has too many 1 for 4 pumps that block for 2, it gets really awkward really fast. But I think I think most Puffin decks kind of want a couple of these. Like they're pretty happy playing like 2 or 3 of these. And ideally, those are Tighten the Screws and Perk Ups. Drop Back the Hammer is not like an unplayable card, but I just think that you can like really run into a trap of drafting too many of these.
At this point, I'm just like never gonna draw back the hammer anymore. I've been hurt by this card too often now. I just don't like this card anymore. Perk Up is like really good when you play it. Tighten the Screws, very good if you're playing Spitfire. But man, drawback the hammer is a 2 block. It's so a 2 block. It feels so bad. A 1 for 4 2 block feels so bad in this set. It's not even like a natural 1 for 4 go again attack because you have to pair it with a mech attack. If it's a blunderbuss, it's a you pitch a blue with it. It's a three cost six, which is just worse than a 3 for 7. If you compare it with like an attack, it's great, but some of the times you don't have a mech attack to pair it with, and you're like, I guess I arsenal it. Then it gets stuck in your arsenal. Ah man, I have so many bad spots with this card. I'm so sad.
Yeah, I think in general, like costed red two blocks are like a little bit dangerous. Like we talked about this with like the 3 for 7 two blocks too, where you like just don't want too many of them. You just run into real problems where like you can't block if you need to block. If you don't have blues or your curve doesn't work out, you just like have this red in your hand that you can't really pitch, you can't really like play in an efficient way, and it's just kind of like stuck there, and you try to like arsenal it or just like block for two with it, both of which feel pretty bad in a lot of spots. So I think in general the like costed red two block cards are, it's not like a don't put these in your deck, it's just they have a real downside when they don't work out.
hmm This just I just thought about this, but this makes me feel like in this format, your arsenal does feel important. Like I feel like unlike other sets in this format, I feel like my arsenal feels clogged more often than other sets. What do you think about this?
I think that's true. I think it's like especially true if you're playing Marlin, but I think all of the heroes have a little bit of this going on. Part of it is because like you have these high tide cards. Part of it's because you have these like high synergy plays. Like you can like arsenal a perk up and like want to pair it with something, but if you don't draw the thing to pair it with, it can be awkward. But yeah, I do think that your arsenal decisions are quite important, and you can get punished for them in this format.
And it feels like the cards that you end up in your arsenal are typically two blocks, and typically because you don't want to block with them. But if you play too many of them, you just like end up in a spot where you're like have a 3 for 7 in arsenal, and you're just like, I have another 3 for 7 in my hand that blocks for two. I have to block with this card now because there's no other way to convert it. And then I feel like in other sets, you don't get punished for like leaking one damage in the mid game. But in this set, it feels like especially bad to leak one damage because now they get a gold. That's like the biggest difference I feel like in this set and other sets is that your two blocks blocking in the mid game and leaking a damage is like a lot more relevant than in the other formats.
Yeah, I mostly agree with this. I think it does depend like how much gold they have. Like if they're going from like 4 gold to 5 gold, it doesn't matter. But if they're going from like 0 gold to 1 gold, it's like a huge deal. But yeah, I think the fact that there's always on hits does mean that the two blocks can be a lot more punishing.
I have a card that's on this overrated list that it feels a little crazy to me. I put it on there. It's Planeteer Aeronaut. This is just a win more card, right? It's also so hard to make 3 cogs in limited.
I would imagine that if you have Unicycle and Goldwing Turbines, this card's pretty good. But if you don't, it's not, because 3 cogs is pretty hard. But if you have like Goldwing Turbine and Unicycle, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, if you have a unicycle, you can pull this off. But like, isn't this just a win more card?
I don't know. It does seem hard to pull off, but it's still a 2 for 6. I think it's like close enough to Cloud City Steamboat that like it's got to be a pretty good card, but it might not be as good as people think.
Yeah, I feel like. Do you think this? Okay, so if you see a pack with this and Cogwork Zeppelin in the same pack, and let's say it's like pack two, and you get past the pack with this and Cogwork Zeppelin red, which one are you picking?
Well, I'm picking Cogware Zeppelin for sure.
Okay. So I'm not crazy to think like if somebody picks this card, it's like they're overvaluing this card, not including the dollar value of this card. I don't even know how much this card's worth, but Cogwork Zeppelin's like not worth anything. This card has to be worth more than $3. Like other than money drafting, yeah, I think Cogwork Zeppelin is the better card, right?
Yeah. I think it's probably worse than Cogwork Zeppelin. I still think it's probably like a reasonable card, but I have had, I think it was at the world premiere, I had a sealed deck that had Golden Skywarden and Palantir Aeronaut, and I was kind of like, I got 2 M's, I'll play the Puffin deck, and like the rest of my Puffin pool wasn't that good, and I was like, when you can't make cogs, these cards don't really do anything. So I think there's like something there where like, I think it's kind of like Puffin in general, that the deck can be quite synergistic, especially like the mech heavy Spitfire builds. And I think this is like can lead to a lot of frustration for players. I've heard quite a few people like really dislike Puffin. I also disliked Puffin a lot really early on, and I think a lot of it is just that like having a few good cards and then filling it in with good pirate cards doesn't make you have a good deck. You need to have like a deck that plays a cohesive game plan, and you need like all the pieces to come together. So you either need like the cogs and the go again and the Spitfire, or you need the boats to play with the Blunderbuss. If you just like have some cloud skiffs, have some 3 for 7s, have some 2 for 6 mech cards, and just like throw it into a pile, like your deck just doesn't really do much compared to other heroes.
Yeah, yeah, you have to do something unfair because the other two heroes in the set does something unfair.
Yeah.
I think that's like the best way of saying it is like the heroes in the set are not fair. If you play something that's too fair, you're not gonna win as Puffin. And a lot of like Puffin piles are not unfair, which means you lose to the unfair stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super true. And that doesn't mean Puffin can't do unfair things. I think especially Spitfire can do some really, really gross turns. But your deck has to be carefully constructed. Just like having good cards in your deck doesn't get you there. Whereas I think the other heroes, you can kind of just have good cards in your deck and your deck's pretty good. So I think in that sense, Puffin is like a little bit challenging to draft and build properly.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Then, do you want to go quickly about the deck outline for Puffin?
Yeah, so for Spitfire, I have 7 to 10 blues with 13 14 resource cards. Yellows are often really okay in Spitfire. We kind of talked about some of the lines that use yellows that are just fine. In Blunderbuss, do you want more blues, I'm guessing?
Yeah, you just really need the cards to be a 3 block more than it being blues. You're gonna get the second cycle. You're gonna get the third cycle sometimes with the blunderbuss a lot. If you are playing a lot of 3 blocks, so you just need to. If you survive long enough, then you will have a natural pitch deck with enough blues. So I wouldn't be too worried about the blue count. More so, the block values of your deck is more important than that.
That makes sense, yeah. But I imagine if you could have like 13, 14 blues with most of them being 3 blocks, and you have like, especially if you're playing like the battalion barks, you probably, because like you want to draw 2 blues in a hand.
Yeah, if you can just like if you can have 13 blues, great. Like, pitch 2 blues, blunderbuss into bow. Sweet.
Yeah, yeah. But don't play like a bunch of 2 blocks for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't play a bunch of 2 blocks for it. That's how you if you leak too much damage, that is how you lose games with blunderbuss, mostly against Marlin.
Yeah, something I would say that like applies to Puffin, but also just like especially the blunderbuss deck, but also just heroes in general in this set, is that there's some pretty powerful blues out there, both like blue 3 blocks and blues with strong effects like Battalion Bark or like Mutiny on the Battalion Bark, which gives like +2 and steals a gold if you have less gold. There's a lot of these effects that are pretty powerful. And I think generally, like the way I think about it is playing more blues is kind of a privilege. And if you have enough card quality in your blue base, you can play a higher blue count, which makes you more consistent. But you can also play a lower blue count if you don't have the card quality in your blues. So this means like blue 3 blocks and blues that you can actually play. And that's why like we talked about blue battalion bark at the start, because it's a blue 4 for 7 that blocks 3. So the card's just like incredible. And it's just like not really a blue if you draw an all blue hand. So it kind of lets you play extra blues. But if your deck has, so you might be able to, if you have like multiple battalion barks, you might be able to play like 13, 14 blues in your blunderbuss deck. But if you're playing like 5 blue strike golds, you're probably better off playing some other cards instead that block for 3.
Oh, I don't even play the red strike golds. Blue strike golds crazy to me.
You get what I mean, like bad 2 block blue.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. I feel like Strike Gold. You mentioned Strike Gold now, but Strike Gold has to be the card that I went from. I looked at the spoilers and being like, oh, this card is reasonable. To wow, I don't ever play this card anymore.
I think that there's like very select spots where this is good, but you need a lot of go again, which is pretty hard to get. I think there's like a red line Marlin deck that if it comes together, you can play Strike Gold, but even then it's like you can play it. It's not like a slam dunk.
Do you know there's the 0 for 4 pirate attack that has a 3 block, the thief card?
Yeah, Thief and Varmints.
Yeah, that card I don't even play that often. This one blocks for 3 at least. And the on attack removing a gold counter is like relevant in this set.
Yeah, I think the problem is like gold is powerful and big hands are powerful. So attacking for 4 often isn't really good enough because you kind of let your opponent do like a 1 card block plus equipment, deny you gold, and then hit you really hard, which is like not where you want to be. So I find often like the 1 card 4 power plays are like, in most formats, they're really solid. In this format, it feels like you're falling behind.
Feels like you're falling down really hard. It's not true if you can go like scar 4 scar into a 4 though.
Yeah, because then you've done a 2 card 8.
Yeah.
But if all you can do is 4, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You need to have the go again somehow. In that sense, like if you have a 0 for 4, if you play Blunderbuss, you can go like Blunderbuss into Life for a Life into a 0 for 4. It's also pretty good. But you need some kind of go again and attack beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. So back to our deck outline, I guess. The Puffin decks are really contextual. It depends a lot on the weapon you're playing as well as the surrounding cards. But yeah, Spitfire decks can be as low as 7 blues. Blunderbuss can be as high as 14, kind of depending on the factors we were talking about. Usually, you kind of want to be in one of the 2 lanes and have a lot of redundancy. We kind of mentioned just like combining some random mech cards and some random pirate cards usually means you have a bad deck. So you really want to be in like the Blunderbuss plus boat lane, or you want to be in the Spitfire like high synergy cog and go again lane. And there's like a few different ways this can look. You can have more generics with rabbles and nimbleisms. You can have more mech cards with cog generation and pumps, but regardless, you kind of want it to like all be cohesive and come together. You don't want to have like mech pumps and generic attacks. Like that just like doesn't work. There's lots of combinations with Puffin that doesn't work. So make sure that your cards supplement each other and work together. If you have the 2 for 6s, you want the 1 for 4 pumps. If you don't have the 2 for 6s, you don't want the 1 for 4 pumps. Things like that. Yeah. So just think about as you're drafting kind of which direction you're going and which cards you have already, and then which cards you want to pair with them to have an effective deck that kind of like works cohesively.
Yeah, I feel like this Puffin in this set, Puffin is the hero that is kind of the hardest to like say exactly what you want in your deck outline because the best thing to say is like it depends, right? Like once you have one card, it kind of changes the valuation of all the other cards in your deck. I think the best advice that we can give you might be, you just gotta draft a bunch and practice, and at least try and play, a bunch of sealed and see if you can make some Puff Index work and see what works for you the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hopefully some of the packages that we talked about will give you ideas of different directions you can build into, so long as you have the surrounding pieces.
Mhm.
A couple of last things just to round out the show. In terms of playstyle, I think Puffin's often pretty aggressive due to your reliance on gold, and also be like cranking twice to draw a card can be quite good situationally. So you're often aggressively leaning. And your early game often involves getting that first gold, and then the later game you do something powerful with that gold. That can be in the Blunderbuss deck starting to do like the 2 go again into 9 or the 2 go again into a boat, or in the Spitfire deck doing some significantly above rate stuff. But usually you need to like fight for gold for a little bit and then start using that gold to have powerful turns. And usually once you get the gold, it's easy to keep the gold rolling because A, your turns are better, and B, often once you get the gold is because your opponent's out of armor, so all your breakpoints are scarier too. So it's usually like very much like an early game of you don't have gold, and then a late game of you do have gold, and you kind of need to like have plans for both of those phases.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I feel like in this set, the point at which you use your equipment goes a long way. If you are gonna give like a Puffin player their first gold very early, that's okay. As long as you only give them 1 gold and you keep all of your equipment, it's not the worst. The worst case scenarios is like you use up all of your equipment and you give them 1 gold. And then they use that gold to now keep generating gold. That's like an easy way to lose a game against Puffin.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
And then let's go really quickly about the matchups and if you want to go first or second. I haven't seen a reason for Puffin to want to go first.
Me neither. I think she wants to go second. Yes, Gravy can sometimes ally, and that feels a little bad, but I think overall going second is better even into Gravy.
Yeah, I think so too. Even if they play an ally, just attack it, just kill it. That's fine. Like
Yeah, they often can't convert all 5 cards, so it's kind of like they win second.
exactly, exactly. It's fine. It's fine. We'll talk about the matchups real quickly. We already talked about Puffin, but pretty generically, you want to be the first one to generate gold into the Puffin mirror. So if possible, don't let your opponent get more than one gold in one turn. It's gonna be difficult, and the player who gets the most amount of gold first will usually win the game. Yeah, and equipment goes a long way in this matchup. So try and draft 4 equipment. I think that's the that's the best advice I can give you because the puffin mirrors are so swingy.
Yeah, I think it's often like the first person to have a really big turn ends up pulling ahead because you have a big turn, you get gold, and then even if your opponent has a big turn back to get gold, it's like now I have gold and I get to do my deck's busted stuff. And to do your big turn to get gold back, you probably had to take a lot of damage. So it'd be like, oh, like you take 9 damage, you go to 11, here's 15. And it's like the game's not literally over, but you're in a tough spot. So yeah, that's kind of the Puffin mirror against Gravy Bones. I think you usually want to play Blunderbuss to clear their allies. If your Spitfire deck is like particularly powerful and like very consistent, you can get away with Spitfire, and it can be really sick. Like ending on like when you Spitfire clear like a Rigor Mortis, it just feels super unfair. But man, sometimes you really miss having Blunderbuss to just be able to clear an ally. So yeah, be careful with that. But usually you're kind of like clearing allies and trying to pressure and find a spot to go over. Some allies are okay to ignore. Is like a tip I would give against Gravy Bones in general. Like especially the ones that cost resources to attack and don't attack for that much. You can just kind of ignore them. Like
I think the biggest one that I would ignore is Shelly.
and Cuddy Shark, man.
Yeah, they both kind of require a real card to kill, and it's just a Titan's Fist.
Yeah, Shelly's like a little interesting early in the game because like she can keep getting 1 block value, but like the weapon itself is not that scary. And if all they do is Titan's Fist, it's like really not that scary. Like Scuba's in this category too, where it's like, yeah, they get to get gold and recur cards, but like you don't have to kill Scuba. I guess is what I would say. And like similarly, like Cuddy Shark, as they get other allies, Cuddy Shark does get scary, but there's like a lot of turns where they just like I don't even want to attack with this Cuddy Shark. I just want to send a 3 for 7. And you're just like, okay, sure. So, not to say like you should always ignore these allies, but just be aware that, especially if it's getting late into the game, it can be okay to ignore these allies.
Yeah. The ones you can't ignore, I think, is like Rigor Mortis, which is the 6 power 1 health, and probably Swabby, the 2 cost 7 power. I think those two are the ones that you really can't ignore.
And Limpet, you can't really ignore Limpet either. 1 for 2 go again is pretty gross.
Oh yeah, you can't ignore that one too. The one with the natural go against is yeah, you can't let them just have a what is the needle that got banned? Zephyr
Zephyr
needle?
Needle.
Yeah, just kill the Zephyr needle, but yeah, all the other ones you can ignore.
Oh, and Chowder. Chowder's scary to ignore. It just sits there and gains life every turn. If you can like kill them, it's fine, but you gotta be careful. I have had like people ignore Chowder and kill me, so there's definitely spots where you do it, but just yeah, it's sketchy.
Yeah, well, also Chowder doesn't use any resource to attack.
Yeah, it's also a free 3 attacks. They can like block out attack for 3, which is pretty good. Barnacle can also do this, which is like so they're on the border of being ignorable, but basically the costed ones that don't attack for that much aren't that scary.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Marlin, I feel like Marlin's pretty simple. You just like want to board up on block cards because they're gonna overpower in the late game, and if they're playing Manta, you still want to block anyway. So you always just get like value off of your block cards. And if you don't have block cards to board up, just remember that you don't want to fall below 3 because if you're at 3, they will hammerhead the Goldfin harpoon, and that is just lethal. So try and stay above 3, including your armor. And the higher the life total, the better it is. So blocking is just very powerful into Marlin, and just don't be afraid to block with your 2 blocks. In this matchup is the best tip I can give you.
Yeah, I find often against Marlin, I'll go and like fish the yellow on the horizons, the block card, and yellow rally the coast guards. I'll go and fish them out of my sideboard and be like, these aren't in my main deck, but I'm pretty happy to have these against Marlin.
Even the blue, the 2 block card is like
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I find it fine. Like it kind of just like blocks when you need it to in the pitch stack.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a build that like gets the pitch stack, like the blue on the horizon is fine. Like you pair this with any random 3 block and block for 5, you leak 1. That's fine. Like at least you're not dead.
And then in the Spitfire builds, I think you actually kind of want to go the other direction where you want to put something together that's very powerful and go over them. You have a hard time playing a super long, drawn out game. I have fatigued Marlins, but it's usually just due to like overwhelming pressure and damage. So I think being on the front foot is what you want as a Spitfire deck. And in Spitfire decks in particular, you don't want. Like I'd probably play like a red on the horizon, but you don't want a bunch of block cards in your Spitfire deck because you're more likely to do random draws, and random drawing on block card is so bad. So if you're on a good Spitfire build, I would just play your proactive game plan. Don't bring in like yellow on the horizons because even though it blocks out the overpower, I think your best route to victory is just doing too much damage and making her block out and just killing her.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like Marlin requires like a 3 card play to be able to do like a strong overpower turn, anyways. So if you can force them to block with 3 or 4 cards, that is that's the safest route, right? They can't kill you if they're blocking with 4 cards.
Yeah, so if you can just like keep hitting her really hard, it's you can outvalue the Hammerhead Marlin decks is what I would say. And so yeah, if your deck leans that direction, I think you'll know if you have that type of deck. If you have that type of deck, just killing them is your best route. But if you are playing a longer game, then you want the block cards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I think that's pretty much going to wrap us up. A bit of a longer episode. There's just so much to talk about in this set. I think all the heroes are going to be like this, where there's just like multiple archetypes, multiple builds. I'm going to quickly shout out Simon Nielsen's article on the Mothership website. He talks about the format, he talks about all of the heroes in a ton of detail. It's an awesome resource if you're looking for more information to draft. So check that out. And yeah, that's going to be a wrap. If you want to find us, you can find us on social media. I'm at Yuki Lee Bender on Twitter and Blue Sky. Jay is at Ueda J over on Twitter. You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/onthebobble, or you can email us directly at onthebobble. You can email us directly on thebobble@gmail.com. Yeah, good luck. I hope that this helps all of you get ready for nationals. And honestly, we have a draft coming up this weekend. I'm pretty excited to draft this format. I feel like usually by this time I've figured out most things and feel pretty good, and I feel pretty good in this format, but I still feel like I'm learning stuff, and I still feel like there's like archetypes. Like I haven't gotten to draft the Red Spine Manta Marlin deck, even though I think I conceptually understand what it looks like. I haven't really had the Blunderbuss Puffin deck work out. Like there's like still things that I haven't gotten to do in this format, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, the set just came out, Yuki.
Yeah, but I've drafted this set like I don't know, a bunch.
The set's 7 days old technically.
It's true, but I don't know. I've played a bunch of limited of this set, and I think this set's really sweet.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this set so far as well. I'm pretty excited for Cannats. Cannats gonna be so fun.
Yeah, Canadian National going to be really good. It's always fun to be able to play limited at a high level, and Nationals is like, one of those events. I'm calling it now. This is my favorite limited set in Fab.
Yeah, sounds reasonable. This I feel like Treasure Island was a very good include for the set.
Yeah, I think the set does a really good job of like you can just play 3 for 7s and block threes and like play good Fab fundamentals, and it has like a really accessible floor. And then if you want to like sit there, remember your pitch stack, remember your deck composition, and calculate the odds of what you can draw off of your gold and whether it's worth like taking the high variance line or taking the safe line, like you can also do that. Or you can do like some ridiculous second cycle pitch stack. But like you don't have to do those things to engage. Like I think Bright Lights had this problem where like the complexity, unless you wanted to play Tekla kind of wasn't optional. Whereas like in this set, it feels like you can kind of just play your cards, but if you want to go really deep, you also can do that.
Yeah. High C is a sick format. It's such a sick format. It's so deep. There's so much cards. So many decks I want to try. Not enough drafts.
Yeah, so that's really, really fun. Okay. Well, hopefully this helps you out, and we'll see you all next week.
Okay. Sign off.
I think this episode's long enough.
Wait, no. There's something I do wanted to like at least talk about.
Okay.
I know this is already too long, but the next couple episodes are gonna be long anyway. So if I don't talk
As
about this
well.
now, I'm gonna forget about it. I think in general, I'm talking about the gold packs or the treasure packs that are in the high seas boxes. I'm at the point now, I don't like it. I think it was a bad idea.
Yeah. Do you want to? I can guess why, but do you want to elaborate why?
Yeah, so I think the biggest feels bad of this set is the calling at the calling level. Um and even at some of the local game stores, you go to a draft, if the store for whatever the reason is keeps the treasure pack, it takes that much value away from the box. So like
Mhm.
at this point, I'm just like, if I go to a store that's gonna host a draft but are gonna keep the treasure pack and won't raffle it or like give it to the players in some way for free, I would rather just buy a box and be like, yo, who wants to draft this set next to this armory? We don't get gem pack 2, but I feel like this is better, like than supporting a store that's like gonna open up a box to let us draft, but like it feels just like so much worse.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with this. There's so much EV wrapped up in the treasure packs that they really do need to go back into the draft, or it's like, what are we doing here? We definitely had a pre-release. I'm not gonna mention the store, but we definitely had a pre-release where they charged max price. The pricing was fine, but they kept all the treasure packs, and it was just like, yep, this is not a very good value event for pretty much everybody involved. Of course, like some people can like you can still open some good cards. Like some people open like Codex or whatever. There's some good pulls, but definitely it feels bad. And I agree with you that it's like a fun experiment. I'm fine with them doing it this one set, but I hope that this is not the norm because there is some problems with like I guess honestly just like the callings and the stores where the things get kept. Um, yeah, and you're paying a lot for like a sealed or a draft event, and you're just losing out on like I don't know what the percentage of the EV is in the gold pack, but it's pretty big.
It's huge. I think a story that I definitely want to share is I don't know who the host was for the Vegas calling. Do we know who that was? Was
I
it SCG?
think it was SCG.
Let me double check before I continue, actually. Yeah, so it's Star City Games. So the biggest problem that I had with Star City's games, how they ran this event, was the prize wall. So because of limited product, every person was limited to 6 packs of high seas from the prize wall. Honestly, that decision itself, that's fine. Okay, that is just fine. Like yes, product is limited right now. It's like so like if you just let people just like ravage all the prize wall packs from the prize wall, then people like only like 2-3 people will be able to get them and everyone else wouldn't get some. Sure, that's fine. Limiting the 6 packs is fine. The part of the story that I really disliked was apparently there was a group of 4 people that pooled in all their prize sticks to redeem a box worth of high seas. And what SCG's prize wall did was they cracked open the pack, took the treasure pack out of the box, and then handed them an open box.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was kind of crazy because like these people pulled in the things together. They weren't breaking any rules. They were getting 6 packs each, and they were gonna split the treasure pack 4 ways between the friends, which is pretty fair, honestly. But SCG was like, no, they're gonna keep it. From what I've heard, maybe they sent it back to LSS. But what is LSS gonna do with these treasure packs? Like,
Mm-mm,
there's no way
mm-mm,
for
no,
LSS
no, no,
to.
no, 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 no. That's not what they were doing with it. They were selling treasure packs on the prize wall for 500 ticks.
Oh, they're selling it back on the prize wall too. That's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's even crazier to me. So I was very unhappy with that situation. I think a better, less feels bad solution would have been if they just didn't have high seas on the prize wall, and if they just moved all the boxes that was on the prize walls to be able to be played sealed with in the side events, because all the sealed events sold out on Saturday afternoon, and there wasn't enough product for people to play sealed with on Sunday. And that
Mm-hmm.
was also a feels bad, but that's a distribution error. Star City Games has nothing to do with that, but I felt like they shouldn't have had any packs on the prize wall for high seas if they're not gonna be able to give out the treasure packs in them anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It does feel a little like they're taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, yeah. I felt kind of max juiced. Like the sealed events aren't cheap either, and like there was 800 players at the calling. 800 divided by 3 is like 200 and some players. So SCG just gets to pocket 200 gold treasure packs and doesn't go back to the players in any way, shape, or form. Feels really bad. So I don't know. I was like not a fan of this whole situation, and gold packs were getting sold at the venue for like $50 each. Like it's a lot of value, right? Like it's yeah. I just don't like the situation at all. Like yeah, if they I don't know, like put the marbles back in the pack. It's fine. Like whatever. Like it was kind of cool for like day zero release, but now at this point, I'm just like I'm already over it. Oh.
Yeah. I I am also not a fan of it. So hopefully, I'm fine with LSS. I'm all for LSS trying things out. I think it's fun. You gotta, you gotta try stuff out, and sometimes it will work out, sometimes it won't. I agree that this is a change that I would like to see reverted and not continued into the future.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's cool that they try stuff, but this one bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
episode's long enough. Thank you for everyone listening, and we'll see you next week for one of the other two heroes.
Yep. See you all next week. Good luck with your nationals.
All right, bye bye.